So he's
That's awesome.
put it on a new used bed, that Doug had that was better.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, welcome everyone. You guys keep talking. I'm dead serious. Keep talking. Just for people online. Welcome everyone to our next maple syrup history class. Today's topic is the Lisbon earthquake. Per usual, I will be going to get my coffee, and then as soon as I return, as is the standard procedure in maple syrup history, once I return from Monica's coffee house downstairs, I will be commencing the class. So make yourself comfortable. Welcome. Episode number 6, just of Catholicism and disasters.
The guy who owned the truck.
You're with my dad working in the coal mine. When he graduated, he works driving a truck for a coal mine back then. And right out of high school, he went to work at the coal mine. And this truck was 28 or 29, and it didn't go into first gear and it didn't go into reverse. At one point, he hit that power pole that sent all the power into the mine. Knocked it over, and the wire was on his truck, and he had to leave out so he didn't get electrocuted. And they had to bring all the miners up. Truck is it's a brand that isn't made anymore.
Yeah. Well,
The fact that it couldn't go into first gear or reverse made it a little hard to manage.
My granddad used to work on a lot of old trucks like that. Like there's different names like Diamond Rio, and I forget some of the names. And some of them, it was chain drive things. Rather have the regular differential in the back. They were chain drives and all sorts of crazy stuff. And my brother's got pictures of them stuff. And they were even being used in a mining thing. And yeah, some of those mines, big pit mines and stuff like that.
No, this wasn't a pit mine.
It was a down helping get earth mine. But anyway, some of those mines used some hideous big trucks, big dump beds, and big things.
Yeah, I can't remember what this brand was. I mean, obviously it wouldn't seem that big to us today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rio is one of them. And the others.
I'm trying to see if I can. I mean, I have any of them left. I've seen pictures of the model. Oh, this is kind of giving me much interest. Yeah, I'm not. What brand is this? Maybe Mark would remember. He wrote a paper about it. He had to interview a grandparent about experiences from him. He wrote a paper.
That's a cool idea, actually, because boy, do I ever wish I could remember all all the stories my granddad had. And
Mhm.
yeah, crickets. And the station, Joe stations.
Yeah, when my dad worked at the coal mine, they didn't have a washing machine and there's all coal dust. And then they would come under that, and you would just use a pair of jeans until it was so thick with coal dust that it couldn't bend it.
Betsy Johnson, that's pretty stiff. Full dust on jeans, I agree. Today's topic is, did anyone see the last recording that I made?
No, I think that is still when it was available.
No, so if you don't mind, I've sent out, I think, the maple syrup YouTube channel, like I think 40 times.
Well, yeah.
Just check there, like check their normal times. And it's not, I'm not saying that to shame you or like, I'm not even being sarcastic. I'm just saying all the stuff that I post is always on that channel. There's actually two channels that Intellect has kind of relations with. It's that channel, the maple syrup, the Stravolato channel, and then of course just Vandal Catholic, the main ones. But I say that only as a general rule of thumb. I don't want to be annoying you with 1,000 emails, 1,000 flock notes. If I like tonight, we have a Spirit in Life, right? That Spirit in Life will go up on that channel. Everything that I do is on that channel. So if I sent you the link one time, you have it forever, on that channel. Without further ado, the Lisbon Earthquake of 1755, also known as the Great Lisbon Earthquake, occurred in Portugal on November 1st, 1755. We are moving towards modernity. We are moving towards the 20th century from which we will not budge. We will not quit the 20th century once we enter it. With the exception, if you want to say already 9/11, which of course is the 21st century, and COVID, that's really journalism more than history, right? That's things that happened in our lifetime now. But we are gaining full steam ahead. And we just last time I was with you all, talked about the Black Plague. We're already into the 18th century. 1755, Lisbon Earthquake, Portugal, All Saints Day, November 1st. If you jog your mind back to the Antioch earthquake, you remember a lot of people had come into Antioch in 526 on a pilgrimage to go to Mass for Ascension Day. It was May of 526. Same thing happens for this Great Lisbon Earthquake. It's All Saints Day. The churches are full. At around 9:40 local time, there is an 8.5 to 9 on the Richter scale earthquake rupture in the Atlantic Ocean. Guys, it is equivalent to something like, the number was between 10 and 40. I forget which, but 10 and 40 Tsar bombas being simultaneously detonated, the force of it. The Tsar bomba, if you don't know, we're going to talk about the Tsar bomba in this class when we get to the nuclear stuff, is the largest man-made explosion of all time. Tsar bomba. So Tsar, Tsar, and that spelling of Tsar. They can do CZAR, but like the Russian leader, TSAR, and then bomb, BOMBA, Tsar bomba. The Tsar bomba was detonated by the Soviets over Nova Zemlya, this Arctic archipelago. Just one time. Oh, no, excuse me. The Tsar bomba was detonated one time. It wasn't like there was this between 10 and 40 times. So this, again, I don't want to kind of get too far ahead. We're going to talk about the nuclear age. When the Tsar bomba explodes, it's such a massive explosion that people are worried the pilots will be drowned by the aftershock. Like they're going to drop it, it's going to explode, and in the kind of concentric circles working their way out from the blast radius, the plane will be destroyed. So it breaks like concrete thousands of miles away. This is 10 times at minimum, but perhaps more. Maybe the real number, I'll have it somewhere here. I'm losing it in my notes right now, but it's way more significant than that, this natural explosion. So too, like when Krakatoa explodes in 1883, Mount St. Helens, I think they talk, we're gonna have a class just on Mount St. Helens. They talk about it's something like the equivalent of, hundreds of Hiroshima bombs. Nature is much more powerful than man-made explosives. That should. Right. Amen. Yeah. A place called, you don't have to write it down or know it. It's called Nova Zemlya. It's an Arctic Ocean archipelago. So the middle of nowhere. The same way like the Trinity tests, Castle Bravo, all that was done out in the New Mexican desert.
And it was nuclear.
It was hydrogen. I mean, yes, it was nuclear. I am not an expert at all on nuclear bombs, but I believe standard nukes like Hiroshima and Nagasaki are fusion bombs, where hydrogen is fission. It's a different type of reaction. Hydrogen, I know, obviously everyone knows, is much, much more powerful. The hydrogen bomb is much, much more powerful than the standard splitting the atom, atom bomb.
Now what regular power plants are they? Fission and fusion?
I have no idea.
One of the things they'd like to be able to harness and use for nuke, I think, is fusion.
Okay.
They want,
Okay.
and what they're using nitrogen, and they can't. They keep saying it's 10 years away, but they keep not getting to it.
God, they keep moving the goalpost. Yeah, maybe it's kind of an intractable, unsolvable problem, but yeah. Well, so this explodes out in the Atlantic Ocean, okay? The epicenter, guys, the epicenter of this hydrogen bomb-like explosion, earthquake in the Atlantic Ocean is 120 miles southwest of Cape St. Vincent. 120 miles southwest of the whole Iberian Peninsula. Obviously, Portugal is that western strip right next to Spain. Estimates place the death toll in Lisbon alone, just the capital city, 10 upwards of 100,000 people. An enormous discrepancy. Okay? Now, guys, this is not the entire story. Okay? Earthquake strikes on November 1st, 1755. 9 on the Richter scale, multiple hydrogen bombs. This lasts between 3 and 6 minutes, okay? Not the aftershocks, the immediate rumbling, tumbling, the breaking down of structures, just the earthquake itself, 3 to 6 minutes. Causing fissures, crevices to open up in the city, which are as wide as 16 feet. Just the ground is splitting apart in Lisbon. Anyone know what happens next? This is a 3-part disaster. Remember, anyone watching online, welcome Catholicism and Disasters. The syllabus is available at vandalcatholic.com. Thanks to Meg Clark and the wonderful people that have put this, made it accessible on the web. And every one of these classes, we cover a disaster, talk about it, and the Catholic response. Today's, no, not yet, but that's coming. And the guest, Betsy, I guess, is fire next. Fire is not next. Every class we go through a disaster, talk about the response. Today is all Lisbon earthquake. And before we talk about the response to that, we have a 3-part terror act. And exactly, fire is there, just not fire is last. First, you have this massive earthquake, just earthquake qua earthquake, just an earthquake by itself. Ripping open 16-foot crevices in the city, everything's crumbling. 40 minutes later, a tsunami rolls into town.
Oh, right.
So this happens 100-some miles southwest of the Iberian Peninsula. What happens what happens when a kid throws a rock into the pond, right? Obviously. I'm not even going to answer that question. Everyone has thrown a rock in the pond and seen how the water reacts to that, to receiving that rock. So what happens if you detonate from one stick of dynamite in a pond? What happens if you detonate 30 hydrogen bombs beneath the ocean floor? I think it's obvious. It creates massive waves. 40 minutes after the earthquake, a tsunami engulfs the harbor and the entire downtown area. So imagine, God bless these people. I say every single class with these disasters, may God rest their souls in heaven. May God grant them eternal life. This is awful. This is horrifying.
And that was 40 minutes later.
40 minutes later, the tsunami hits the city. Hits Lisbon. Exactly. Yes, sir. Because that's a great question. Again, this is not just the Portuguese earthquake. This is the Lisbon earthquake. We focus on Lisbon, the city proper.
Did people know to try to get from here when the water went away?
It is absolute chaos. I'm going to read I actually have notes from a book on the Lisbon earthquake that I'm going to recommend to you right now. Ready? The name of the book is The Gulf of Fire. Gulf, like Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Fire. I believe that's the title. The Gulf of Fire, something like, sorry?
Fine.
I'll tell you in 1 second. The Gulf of Fire, Apocalypse in the Age of Reason. I know the author 100%, Mark Molesky. Molesky. I actually had the privilege. How cool is this? I was a student of Mark Molesky at Seton Hall University. He's a Harvard PhD, still a professor at Seton Hall in South Orange, New Jersey. I took his European history class freshman year. And when I was teaching a European history class much later on, after I myself had received my PhD, imagine my surprise and like how I felt proud of him. Oh, cool. This is, a guy I was in his class, how successful he's become. The Gulf of Fire, or this Gulf of Fire. Betsy, can you tell me the exact title? Is it this or the? This Gulf of Fire. Thank you. This Gulf of Fire. Oh, good. Is it this Gulf of Fire? Apocalypse in the Age of Reason. What is the subtitle?
This Gulf of Fire, the Great Lisbon Earthquake. Let me see, look more closely here. Or Apocalypse in the Age of Science and Reason.
Okay, so I had the title like 91% correct, but with some errors. This, not this Gulf of Fire, the Lisbon Earthquake, Apocalypse in the Age of Science and Reason.
The Great Lisbon.
The Great Lisbon Earthquake.
Or Apocalypse in the Age of Science.
And I know for scale.
Yeah.
Is not something that has happened a long time ago. 7 is considered.
Yeah, sure. No, this is unbelievable. Yeah, it's one of the worst earthquakes of all time. Yeah, this is bad. Krakatoa is a volcanic explosion. I don't know how that's measured relative, with tremors and stuff.
Okay. Library will notify me if they ever get this.
Good, thanks, Betsy. If I can find my copy, I'm not even kidding. I'll give it to you, and I'll loan it to you. Quote / if you just never give it back, I'm cool with it. Like I'll just give it to you. I have it at home somewhere, but it's got my notes in it and stuff. So that if you're okay with that, it's kind of written up a little bit. But Mark Molesky, Molesky, this Gulf of Fire. Read that book. That's where we're getting. That's the whole. Sorry for that long kind of rabbit hole. Just getting the title, but that book explains the play-by-play. Let's get back to that for a second, because I'm gonna have questions from Molesky's book. I have questions from Molesky's book. But remember, 9 point in the Richter scale, like hydrogen bombs, first explodes 100 miles southwest of the Iberian Peninsula, causes massive waves, which reach Lisbon 40 minutes later. A tsunami engulfs the entire town. And then, oh, the irony, the tragedy. Pilgrims had come to Lisbon to celebrate All Saints' Day. What happens when all those candles are knocked over in the churches? The whole city set on fire. So in this kind of tripartite act of horror, the Lisbon earthquake is not only one of the worst earthquakes of all time, more powerful than multiple hydrogen bombs. Number one, not only does it destroy the city with a 3 to 6 minute shaking event, traditional earthquake, and cause massive crevices in the ground, not only does it bring tsunamis into the city and engulf it in water, because pilgrims had arrived for the feast day, All Saints' Day, the town is now completely on fire. Welcome, Turner. What caused the fire? The fact that the earthquake and the water had knocked over all the churches that had all the candles in them, all the candles that were lit as votive offerings for All Saints' Day. And if you're thinking, how does fire work with water?
And to be followed by fire.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of this water is not seeping its way to every part of the thing. It's just knocking over churches. The city gets set on fire. Well, we're gonna, when I say this with trepidation in terms of like, I always want to respect these people who suffered through this. I can't wait to talk about the San Francisco earthquake. It's one of our ones upcoming soon, I think in 2 weeks. Yeah. So did Dorothy Day. She lived in Oakland, Bay Area then. She was born, I think, 1899. So she's a little girl, 6, 7 years old. She remembers the, when was your grandfather born? What year?
1856.
So him and Dorothy Day are contemporaries. Same within 1 or 2 years or whatever, right? Cool. We're our class first we'll talk about that week. I think it's not this next week, but the week after. 1900 Galveston hurricane, one of the worst hurricanes in U.S. history in Texas, and obviously, and then the San Francisco earthquake is that second class that week. Turner, 1755. Can I explain to you everything you missed in 40 seconds? I think I can. Today's disaster is the Lisbon earthquake of 1755. It's one of the worst earthquakes of all time, 9 on the Richter scale. 100 miles southwest of the Iberian Peninsula, the explosion under the water is equivalent to multiple hydrogen bombs. That 3 to 6 minute earthquake shaking event destroys all of Lisbon. Then a tsunami hits the city from the displacement of water from that initial rupture. A tsunami hits the city 40 minutes later. So 3 acts: earthquake, tsunami, and finally, as we you heard the tail end, you're coming in, because it's All Saints Day and candles are lit all throughout the town. They collapse with all the rubble and set the city on fire. So Lisbon suffers a traditional earthquake plus tsunami plus mass fire event. It's one of the worst natural disasters.
Did the fire occur before the tsunami?
No, after the tsunami. After the tsunami. Yeah, which sounds perplexing. How is that? How did the tsunami not extinguish it? No, the tsunami comes in. Tsunami doesn't hit all the town, just the harbor and gets in the center. But a lot of it just the waves like knocking buildings down. The water doesn't get inside; it recedes. Everything just flying. The fire comes last.
So the blurb about the book you recommended says that the fire subjected survivors to temperatures exceeding 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit. 1,000 degrees.
Betsy said of a very sombering, but good quote for information. The fire subjected survivors to temperatures. I'm going to round up almost 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,830 degrees. If anyone's ever put their hand or their head, like when you make pizza, right? You open the oven and it blasts you at 400. Okay, so 4 times that. Yeah, this is awful stuff. Once more, and the last time, it's not under the rubric of, my aunt sneezed 17 times, bless you, bless you, bless you, just, say it the whole time. One time is enough. Well, once more, may God rest his people's souls. This is freaking horrible. I never want to ever take that flippant postmodern view. Oh, it happened so long ago. We can even make jokes about this stuff. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. These are people's brothers, sisters, mothers, wives, children, husbands, all that stuff. And it's horrifying. Triple act, and that fire is, it might as well feel like the surface of the sun. Burned for weeks in the aftermath. Yeah. Anyone know what at least in American history, I think the longest burning fire in American history is?
Would it be a fire of tires?
Where is this fire of tires? Where?
Virginia.
Oh, I don't know. That might surpass the answer I know. But related to our class specifically, and what we'll cover 9/11, the ground zero fire burns for like 11 months. I know it takes them like 11 months, well into 2002, to extinguish the final flames of even small fires that have been smoldering, kindling under the collapsing of the Twin Towers.
Okay.
Or maybe even, excuse me, I don't want to have, we'll correct the record later. Maybe it's even 3 months or something, but it's not weeks. It's definitely months. It might be like they finally extinguished it by Christmas or into 2002.
When I was a freshman in college, there was a forest fire around college, and this was California, land of oil. And the grand homes started burning, and it was burning underground, and there'd be this smoke coming up through cracks. And they finally, and I think it took months, and they finally had to dig out a lot of ground. They tried pumping liquid nitrogen in, I think, and
Crazy.
they put it out, and in one place they had to replace the road with a bridge because they just had to take all the dirt out to get the fire out.
That's awful.
This thing, Thomas.
This was in Ventura County.
Which?
That was 89.
Oh, okay.
I did. No, sorry, that was 85. Sorry, 85. Yeah, I got to prison for 2 years and then went there, and yeah. So
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that information, by the way. Seriously, that's harrowing. I'm glad you obviously escaped unscathed. What I want to do, we've kind of, if we finish the class right now, we're obviously not even close, but I'm saying like that's pretty good information. But I want to complete all the info. So if you allow me, I'm going to give you all the info about this, and then I want to do 2 more things. I want to do things from the Molesky book, and then what this class is all about. Like, again, anyone watching online for the first time, it's facts and reaction. It's the disaster, which is today, 1755, November 1st, Lisbon Earthquake. What is the religious, specifically Catholic reaction to these disasters? So we're in the middle of Act 1 still, just the facts. I'll complete that. Then I'll go to the Molesky questions from Gulf of Fire. I hope that doesn't discourage you from reading the book, Betsy. The Gulf of Fire won the LA Times Book Award. It was like a finalist for Book of the Year. It's very well renowned.
Yeah, it has a bunch of stuff here about
It's great, yeah.
awards it won.
Yeah, it's whatever stock you put in awards, it meets that, it checks those boxes. And I will say again, really, Professor Mark Molesky, a legend. Like I remember even as an idiot 18-year-old freshman, which I was in his class. I remember being like, this guy's legit. This guy's a legit historian, very good lecturer. And so it's cool to see people who are talented recognized for their talent. So, God bless him all the more in his wonderful achievement with his book. I'll go through the notes on that. And the final thing I'll just we'll do the kind of Catholic reaction. So guys, you got the main gist. Richter scale, triple act of earthquake, tsunami, and fire. Here's more facts. Tsunamis as tall as 66 feet swept the coast of North Africa, striking also Martinique and Barbados across the Atlantic. A 10-foot tsunami hits Cornwall on the South English coast from this. Insane. Talked about the idea of the kid throwing a rock in the water and the ripple effects. Here you go. Galway. Where's Galway?
Yeah.
Ireland. Do you like the song Galway Girl? Betsy, have you ever heard that before? It's a clap. I'm definitely not going to sing it. Absolutely not. But Betsy, you embody the idea of like mirth very well. You're a very joyful person. I love when you're in class. That there's no punchline joke coming. I'm just glad you're here. Galway and the west coast of Ireland was also hit. So it's like, okay, this is a worldwide event. This is a global event. In 2015, it was revealed also that tsunami waves may have reached as far as Brazil. Okay, economic historian, and if you're like, Grasha, are you just going to read off facts? I am. Remember, Act 1, I'm going to finish all these facts. Boom, 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 boom. Take down whatever you want, but it's all recorded. So if you miss stuff, you can revisit it later. All these facts, then Molesky book notes, then Catholic reaction, then goodbye. Economic historian Alvaro Pereira estimated that of Lisbon's population at the time, which was about 200,000 people, he thinks 30 to 40,000 were killed. I think they're just throwing stuff on a wall, see what sticks here, right? He says 30 to 40. The earlier figure I gave was 10 to 100,000. It's once more, I think you remember the Antioch earthquake. We said like, it was between, or the Black Plague was like, it might be 25% or 60. Well, that's an enormous difference. If you just do even 1 million people for the purpose of mathematical statistics, 250,000 upwards to 600,000 is a massive difference. How many people in this room, 100 people, are great students? 25, 60, I don't know. That's not exactly, right? I think we're just kind of throwing things at a wall here. There's no doubt it was awful and horrible. How many are died exactly, we might never know. Again, a lot of people, and this reason for this fire, the candles being lit, are in town that are pilgrims. They're not from Lisbon. So that's also making the numbers bloated or inflated or not accurate, What's crazy is that another 10,000 may have lost their lives in Morocco. This is insane. Like the direction of this, the proximity of this, working northeast from the epicenter, really hits the Iberian Peninsula, and Portugal and Lisbon is capital in specificity. And yet Morocco, across the Mediterranean, also is affected, upwards of 10,000 casualties. 85% of Lisbon's buildings were destroyed, including, of course, along with that, a lot of famous palaces, libraries, gardens, whatever points of interest. One example I'll give you is the palace of this guy, Henrique de Meneses. He was a marquis, the third marquis of Lorsal. He had a library that had almost 20,000 books, kind of rare manuscripts. The most famous example of a rare manuscript place being destroyed, of course, is the Great Library at Alexandria, right? So that kind of event. So many things that we don't have copies of, there's no Wikipedia, are destroyed forever. 2009 study estimated the earthquake cost between 32 and 48% of Portugal's mid-18th century GDP. So let's go all the way. It takes out half their GDP. Let's even estimate 2% higher. Remember, Portugal is a civilization, a country on the decline at this time. Portugal is super important in Catholic history. I don't think I have to tell you guys that, right? The apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima happen in Portugal. Fatima is in Portugal, and Our Lady says to the kids, the true faith will always remain in Portugal, despite attacks from Masons, secularists, whoever, atheists. Portugal is very important in church history. It's a very, very important Catholic country, to which Fatima is its kind of crowning fame. Portugal is not important geopolitically. No one cares at all, right? I mean, if someone's asked me, I'm going to learn Portuguese, but not Spanish. Why? Why would you do that? Just even like some random 19-year-old student, I want to go on the international stage. Why would you learn Portuguese? Nobody cares. And Portuguese is beautiful. Gosh, it sounds like electric. It sounds like a French-Italian, it sounds almost identical to Spanish, but the French-Italian kind of like they're being electrocuted kind of in a cool way. It's a beautiful language. but like it's not usable. Like learn Spanish, 100%, right? Portugal is not even close in importance to Spain, and Spain's not that important, right? If you look at like the main European countries with the Ukraine war now, Germany and France, like even the whole Iberian Peninsula has kind of fallen down. Yeah, Brad.
Brazil speak Portuguese?
They do. So what? Brazil, yeah, so even more so, right? Brazil speaks Portuguese, and no one else in Latin America does. And then there's some place in Africa that also speaks Portuguese, a colony close to Madagascar. Totally irrelevant. And you know how much I love linguistics. But it's like there'd be no reason for anyone to learn Portuguese ahead of any of the Romance languages, save Romanian, maybe, right? Definitely learn French and Spanish first, Italian next, Portuguese dead last. I'm not trying to trash on Portugal, I'm just stating facts about geopolitical realities. This earthquake ends Portugal. Portugal, if you remember, even before Spain, was out there in the world of exploration. The Portuguese explorers, these great missions to map the globe and all that, Portugal was at the forefront. Portugal was a major player.
Were they the ones that financed Columbus?
No, Ferdinand and Isabella, the Spanish monarchs, financed Columbus. Columbus is from Genoa. He's Italian.
Okay.
Yeah. There was no Italy then. Italy does not unify as a country, modern Italy, until 1871. But Columbus is from the port city of Genoa in Italy, which is one of the rare places in this class I have been. I've been in Genoa a few times.
These are all Portuguese-speaking countries.
How many are there?
8.
And how many matter? I'm already arguing Portugal and Brazil don't even matter. What are the other ones? No, absolutely not. I'm sorry if anyone watching from Mozambique is offended. Did anyone in Mozambique think Mozambique is an important country on the world stage? I don't think so. Let's please be honest, right? I bet if I went to Mozambique, I'm not trying to, obviously I have no problem just like being Mozambique's not important. So I'm obviously speaking my mind. So also speaking my mind, I bet if I went to Mozambique, I'd find it lovely. The people would be really friendly, awesome, rich culture, beautiful, all that stuff. It doesn't matter as an international player, right? What countries matter as an international player? The US, China, the European Union. Even though France and Germany are within the EU, them independently as well, Middle East, Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, like these countries have North Korea, interestingly enough, talk about a disaster, awful Angola. Yeah, again, you're proving my point, right?
Yeah.
You're proving my point. Well, Portugal, though, was an important world player in the 16th century. Portuguese cartography, exploration, top class. And this disaster, guys, if you're looking for effects that are not so much Catholic as just secular, ends Portuguese hopes of any kind of importance on the world stage. Portugal has arguably never recovered from the Lisbon earthquake. The economic loss, almost half the GDP. Portugal is what Portugal is today. This beautiful, breathtakingly gorgeous, and for us Catholics, unbelievably important country of Our Lady of Fatima, where the true faith will never disappear. An amazing country close to our hearts, not an important player at all in the world stage. Okay. So that's good enough for information. Here's stuff from Gulf of Fire, guys. Here's stuff from Gulf of Fire. Molesky asks on page 13 and 14, and guys, you don't have this book now. Betsy Johnson is getting this book. I'm not even gonna do the page numbers. Yeah, that's not important, right? Well, there's no reference. We don't have the book in class. But Molesky asks, does natural disaster aid popular revolution? Is there a connection between natural disasters and the post-cataclysm desire to revolt or remake society? Yeah, I would say certainly. If you don't mind, actually, too, like I love this class is all about you. I'm just going to read you these and just almost like try to entice you. Get this book. It's a great book. I really want to hear what you have to say. We're in Act 2 now, the book. I really want to hear your opinions, and I want to shut my mouth when I get to the Catholic reactions. That's going to be really, really interesting. But for these, I just want to just give you the info because it's an amazing award-winning book, and then we'll move on to the last act. Molesky says, yeah, I'm going to do the page numbers. You know what, Turner? I'm going to go for it. Page 33. He says, so just know where this is in the book. You're going, it's about a 270-page book, I think, 300 pages. Page 33, very early, talks about August 22nd, 1415. This is 300 years, 40 years before this event. Portuguese capturing the seaport of Quetta, and this era of European global expansion had begun. Right, like, he asked furthermore, what was pre-earthquake Portugal like? It was a bubbling city overflowing with wealth. It was a very important center of European and worldwide commerce, especially in this debuting age of globalization. The capturing this port city predates Columbus by 70 some years. I finally have your answer, Betsy, on page 70. Thank you, Mark Molesky. It was 9 times more powerful than the Tsar Bomba. So I was wrong saying 10 to 40, 9 times. Still, okay, the Tsar Bomba, this greatest man-made hydrogen bomb explosion to which breaks concrete from thousands of miles away. Imagine 9 of them at the same time being detonated. Page 96, actions of the people more shocking than the earthquake itself. What do you think he means by that? Actions of the people more shocking than the earthquake itself.
What did the people do?
And why is it shocking? What do you think? Again, I'm giving you, it's all credit to you providing a good cogent answer here. I'm just asking you to kind of shoot darts in the dark. But what do you think he means by that? Like positive or negative? No, he means the opposite. He means like people be turned into robbers and looters and, Lord of the Flies. Although, praise God, there are always, right? Look at the Black Plague we talked about last week. And how awesome is this for our whole Catholicism Disasters series writ large? What do we see in the Black Plague? Lots of priests who abandoned their posts were cowards. And, God have mercy upon me, there, but by the grace of God go I. I'd probably be a double coward. So I'm not trying to say, oh, shame on them. I'd probably be triple worse. But a lot of priests who were cowards, who didn't, who tried to save their own skin. But we talked about priests and nuns who heroically ministered to their congregation. Same thing here, right, Betsy? But there's tons of people who are pulling babies out of the rubble and being heroic. He means it negative. He means all of a sudden the guy, you talked about talking to your neighbor about the car. Imagine talking to your neighbor, but after the hydrogen bomb, he's like looting your house. And you're like, wait a second, you're my neighbor for 40 years, dude. And he's like, sorry, things have changed, that kind of thing. The disaster happens, and all of a sudden it's every man for himself, Darwinistic, Lord of the Flies, dystopia, Cormac McCarthy type novel, stuff. So he's like, Molesky asked, do disasters cause people to abandon basic human values, forget loved ones and strangers, so as to only save oneself? I hate postmodern answers. Well, it depends. It's both. It is both. Of course, it's yes and no. You've heard the thing that hard times don't make a character, they reveal it. If you're a good, holy person, by the grace of God, you probably act heroically in this. If you're an evil beep, fill in your favorite expletive, who in peace times, that's not brought to the fore because everyone's just cool. Now I see you're out looting and attacking people and stealing because you've always been like that. Like it reveals it. So it depends. It is yes and no.
It might depend on your age too. You might react differently at
Sure.
different age.
Sure. How about just an emotional maturity too? Not even just a numerical age, right? I mean, yes. Yeah, a lot of factors. Oh man. Last page. Last point from Molesky. I have 20 points. We're not going to read all of them. He just asks, what is the profound and lasting psychological effect? Now, so we're going to talk about the Catholic effect. So guys, ladies and gentlemen, what is theodicy? And I hate like wordplay stuff. Oh, that was a way of saying the Odyssey, Odysseus. No. Like the actual, I'm not being cute, dumb puns. Slamming together the Odyssey, sequel to the Iliad. I hate that kind of stuff. Like cutesy language. An actual term, Theodicy, theodicy. What is theodicy? This is now, my friends, welcome. This is now the Catholic response. We did the facts, the facts. And I am encouraging you to go read This Gulf of Fire, talked about points from that book. Now we're into the real, we've done the disasters. This class actually should be called not Catholicism and Disasters, Disasters in Catholicism. Because we always talk about the disaster first, but.
Okay, can I read you the definition?
Read the definition, go.
The vindication of divine goodness and providence in the view of the existence of evil.
Yeah, theodicy, in other words, some people credit, surprise, surprise, our patron, St. Augustine of Hippo, with developing this idea. It's better known as the problem of evil. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do bad things happen, period? Our blessed Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, in the gospel, forever quashes the notion of we're so righteous, those guys are so bad. With now, I think it's the 9th time I've referenced this in this class, that Tower of Siloam story, right? When the tower falls and Christ says, you think you're so righteous? Unless you repent, the same thing will happen to you. It's not that they're worse sinners than you. but the problem of evil. So Augustine says about the problem of evil, God is perfect, obviously, he's good. Evil is nothing more than what? Evil doesn't have a positive nature. What does Augustine say? It's a lack of the do-good that should be there, right? And so because of original sin, because of us saying, sadly, St. Michael protect us, but following Satan's cue and an example, I will not serve, because of us saying, no, I won't serve, I won't go on with your plan, God, I know better than you. I know better than God, I'm going to make myself, elevate myself. Okay, fine. Well, the result of that creates this hole, this lack, both in the human soul, the stain of original sin, but also in society. And so we get death, suffering, all this bad stuff. We as Catholics, following St. Paul, also say, right, wherever evil abounds, grace all the more. And we believe that God always pulls the good out of the bad. That's the Catholic response to all disasters. You all know the story of Joseph and the many-colored coat, right? His brothers throw him into the cistern or whatever it is. That's bad. That's evil. That's Lisbon Earthquake. That's a negative outcome for him, right? They leave him to die in the desert. Well, God takes that bad, and what does he do? He makes him prime minister of Egypt, right? So it's like, even you cannot outdo God in goodness. That is the message of the cross. Catholicism in disasters, if I could reduce it to one thing, a motto, like a tweetable thing, Catholicism in disasters equals the lesson of the cross. Dying, you destroyed our death. Rising, you restored our life. The holiest, highest Catholic reaction in regard to any disaster is out of that rubble, out of that Good Friday comes Easter Sunday, right? And so you have a lot of this in the Lisbon earthquake, but you have a lot of also the birth kind of modern atheism. Let's talk about that. So before we talk about the Catholic position itself, you get people like Voltaire, David Hume, hence the subtitle, Betsy, Apocalypse in the Age of Faith and Reason, who are like, this proves there's no God. This proves the universe is not good. Look, and it happened on All Saints' Day too, right? How could God, allow this? So you have, on the one hand, some atheist reaction, especially by Voltaire was like, I think wrote prolifically about this very event. This happens again in 1755. The great philosopher Voltaire, I use great as important. I think he's not great at all. May God have mercy on him. I think what he stood for was absolutely horrifying and awful. But the great, as in, the very significant French philosopher, author of the book Candide, maybe most famously, right? Candide ends with, we should all just tend our own garden, just do your own thing, seek your own pleasure, mind your own business. Don't set out trying to do good. Just, just mind your own business. Voltaire and a lot of kind of atheist, secular and atheist is almost code for enlightenment, right? So it's kind of enlightenment without God. Deifying reason, blessed be God forever. There's only one God. Reason is not a god or a goddess, as these blaspheming French revolutionaries said when they set up the goddess of reason in Notre Dame Cathedral. So it's this deification, this idolatrous deification of human reason. With my mind, me alone, following. Remember last logic class, last semester, if I can jog any of you back, way back, Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Reality is in I am the ontological departure point. So a lot of people say, yeah, this shows that, there's no God. Other people take the Calvinist position, which is what? What is the Calvinist position? P.S. I'm not a fan of Calvinism. You've heard me say it many times. If you were like Gratian, you gotta choose a Protestant denomination. You got to choose a Protestant denomination to go bake cookies for and give them high fives and be like, you guys are my brothers. Your choice is Baptists, who are like, everyone's saved, or these Calvinists. Baptist 100 out of 100.
We're totally depraved, and God has chosen
Exactly.
what he loves enough to save.
We're totally depraved. We have no free will whatsoever. And by the way, God does evil, basically. Like evil's, yeah, he's God. He can do whatever he wants, including evil stuff. Like he can just send people to hell, and it abuses, I would say, as a Catholic, the idea of providence. The idea of providence is God wills all men to be saved. Yeah, it's like 1 Timothy 2:4, if I'm not mistaken my Bible citation. God wills all men come to the knowledge of God and come to salvation. But we effed up, guys. We screwed up, right? He told us don't eat the apple, and we ate the apple, right? So because of the sin, fine. God loves us so much, he respects our free will, unlike the Calvinists who say we don't have any free will. And so with our free will, that consequences abound. And consequences are, just one of those consequences are a world of natural disasters and, volcanic eruptions, which of course are that, all versions of natural disasters and sin and death and disease and whatever. God is not the causing agent of that. That's the world we live in. So there's three responses to the Lisbon earthquake, I would say. I've given you two. I'm going to finish with the Catholic response, and then I'm going to take your questions. The first response to the Lisbon earthquake is the atheist one. Obviously, there's no God. God doesn't care. Lisbon got destroyed in this epic fashion too, right? Earthquake, tsunami, fire, everything. God completely God completely just reduced Lisbon to the ground. There is no God. Before I get back to this point, I'll get you filled in, Clay. We're almost done with the class, but you came at the perfect time to hear the last discussion point. Before I asked Turner, I said, could I sum up what he missed in 40 seconds? I'll try to do the same for you. Lisbon earthquake is November 1st, 1755, a 9-point Richter scale explosion on the southwest of the Iberian Peninsula. That's equivalent to 9 hydrogen bombs. That rupturing event creates a 3 to 6 minute earthquake that destroys all of Lisbon. That's one thing. Second thing is, from that rupture event, a tsunami soon engulfs the town. And then because it's All Saints Day and pilgrims were in town to celebrate this holiday, all of the votive candles fall down and the city burns for weeks. So it's an earthquake, one of the worst earthquakes of all time, plus a tsunami, plus kind of a fire event, the Great Fire of London or Chicago. The city just is smoldering in flames.
Lisbon is in Portugal.
Lisbon is in Portugal, exactly. And we talked about that. Then we moved. Those are the facts. You're caught up on the facts. Second thing we talked about was quotes from a really good book, which either won runner-up or won the LA Times Book Award by a guy named Mark Molesky, Molesky, called This Gulf of Fire, which gives great full information on this if you're interested. And now you're truly fully caught up now. We're saying there's three main responses to Lisbon earthquake. There's what you probably heard as you came in, the atheist response. There is no God. God doesn't care. This is proof. What people like Voltaire and Hume would say, that God doesn't care for his people, because look, how could this happen? And this question of theodicy, we defined Theodicy, that a lot of people root back in St. Augustine, the problem of evil. Why do bad things happen to good people, etc. First response is the atheist response. The second response is the Calvinist response. Well, there is a God, but God can do evil too. You don't have a free will. You're a puppet. Everything's a puppet. Everything's a plaything in God's hands. Why can you not just destroy stuff if he feels like it? In a sense, it is a blasphemy against God's rationality.
The Times Book Prize
finalist. Awesome. Gosh, I would love to have one of my books as a finalist for like that.
And
it's super impressive.
5 Alpha Theta Best Subsequent Book Award.
Yeah, awesome. Which means, I think Phi Alpha Theta, I believe, is the history kind of fraternity subsequently. It's not his dissertation. It's his second kind of historical book. And I mentioned too, this is totally FYI, who cares? I was actually an 18-year-old freshman in Mark Molesky's class at Seton University. Really cool guy, good professor. And when I was teaching this stuff later on, it's fun to discover how well he's done with this book. It's nice to see when talented people succeed, that kind of thing. I made that point as well. It's a rare for a historian to have that kind of popular impact too. The book is very, very well received. So Mark Molesky, This Gulf of Fire. If you're interested in the kind of full story beyond the hour and a half we have here in these kind of brief episodes of maple syrup history. But the second one said, right, no, there is a God, but he just can do whatever he wants. And I said, it's blasphemy against God's rationality. I do not speak Greek at all, but it's something like in the Gospel of John, in arche logos, like in the beginning, the word is kind of a weak translation, like the logos of God, right? Which is that word logos, Jesus Christ, second person, God incarnate, logos incarnate, has a translation that's so much beyond just logic and reason, like everything. So it's a complete blasphemy against the logos of God. The Calvinist position says God is above logic. God is logic. Well, what's the Catholic response? So he said the Catholic response would be, St. Paul, wherever sin abounds, grace all the more. I talked about the Joseph many-colored coat story, that he gets thrown in a cistern, but he becomes prime minister of Egypt. Not in spite of that, because of that. If he wasn't thrown in a cistern, Moses, if he wasn't put in the basket, right? It wouldn't be Moses, because he got abandoned and raised as Egyptian, blah, blah, blah. And I said, the motto of Catholicism and Disasters is the cross. Disasters are Good Friday, not in spite of, because of the Good Friday, you get an Easter Sunday. A last final example before we finish up. The city of Atlanta is a great example of this, no cross, no crown. Atlanta today is one of the most important world economic cities. the hub of Delta, all this kind of stuff. It's the southern New York. Atlanta was rebuilt during the Civil War because it was burned to the ground. And people say if it was never torched to the ground, it would have never become what it was today. It would just continue on as some kind of country bumpkin. No offense to Colfax, but that kind of city, whatever. So the best thing that happened to Atlanta was being burned to the ground. That's kind of the great message of Catholicism disaster. So what do the Catholics say in response to this? Final point of the class. Covered a lot of information. So glad to have all of you here. And you are now, that's everything we talked about in short note, kind of caught up. Truly, you do not, I know later on you were going to watch this, like TV dinner style, but you don't have to watch the episode now. That's the whole thing. What do Catholics say? Well, Catholics take a few positions, and here they are. Under the rubric of 3, consider these like 3A, 3B, 3C. Some Catholics say we deserve this. God is punishing us. Not in the Calvinistic way, but God is chastising us. It's not that God is above logic and reason and God does evil stuff because he just feels like it. Shut the F up. It's none of your business. He's God, kind of Calvinist attitude. No, it's like, no, God, like a father, is chastising his children, his wayward children. The Old Testament, if you've ever read it, a surprise, is like God constantly punishing the chosen people, right? Constantly, the wayward people, but he loves them. I'll never abandon you. And he at one point compares himself like a scorned wife, right? Like or a scorned husband whose wife is engaged in all his harlotry and prostitute herself out, but he keeps taking her back. That's one example. We deserve this. Why would people in Portugal think they deserve it? Because Portugal has this kind of Las Vegas feel. Portugal, which we spend a lot of time talking today, doesn't matter at all geopolitically. It's completely irrelevant on the geopolitical stage. In fact, this is an event that causes that. The GDP is slashed 32 to 48%. So this completely reduces Portugal's import on the world stage. It was a port city party, probably a lot of brothels, a lot of fun, wine kind of city. So a lot of people are saying, see, this is what happens. We've strayed from the path. So number one is kind of that idea. To the answer to theodicy, God is punishing us. God is punishing us because we deserved it. We're being chastised. A second example would be a very kind of balanced position of, I believe in God's providential hand. I'm going to take the kind of St. Anselm faith-seeking understanding. I don't understand this. It makes no sense, but I trust God has a plan. He's not doing it maliciously. God can't do malice. He's all good, but there's some reason that this is happening. I would be right there as St. Peter, God forbid, Lord, nothing like that'll happen to you, right? Before Christ says, get behind me, Satan, you're thinking like men do. You can't be crucified. I don't understand why the Son of God is going to be crucified, but there must be some good reason. And us looking back now can say, I get the whole idea of the cross and resurrection. The apostles didn't. So some people take the apostle position. I don't know if we're being punished or not. I don't really know anything. I just know that Jesus Christ, I trust you. I believe in God. There's another group of people who are enjoying this. Like a lot of people you see online, kind of sad, but who are like, I can't wait for the great chastisement and everyone to get their comeuppance. All of us have that strain of, the kind of puritanical strain. I want the evildoers punished kind of attitude, right? And it's worth remembering in that moment, that beautiful passage, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But that's very human. I can't wait till people get the Sodom and Gomorrah treatment, the fire from the sky. People are also thinking that, people are liking it. You have the opportunists, maybe a fourth group, and you're like, Russian, how does this relate to Catholicism? Well, everyone in Lisbon is Catholic. Maybe there's guys who have been, pious their whole life, now turn into criminals and whatever. They do the anti-Saint Dismas thing, the good thief on the cross, who repents. They go from seemingly being good practicing Catholics now forgetting all the commandments and looting the whole city and attacking people and doing awful stuff and fill in the blank because of the opportunity of the destroyed city. We've seen, you see a looted city, a war-torn city, there's going to be criminal activity. But I would say that I'm with the penultimate example I gave. I gave you 4 Catholic examples of we're being chastised, number 1. Number 2, what was the second point I gave you? Kind of like the providential thing, maybe we're being assured of that. But the third one was before getting to the looting point, the third one is, I think, the one that I'm most drawn to, perhaps. It removes the hubris of, I'm sure it's this. I'm sure God is punishing us, or I like that God is punishing us, or I'm glad that these people, it's like, I don't know why this is happening. I'm not God. One of the greatest quotes I ever heard from a priest was, there's 2 wonderful truths. It's that God exists and you are not him. And I see the truth of that. Let me even pause there for a second. Seriously, if it was up to me to decide who goes to heaven or hell, oh my gosh, right? Like the people that perhaps deserve like a very hard purgatory because they're my friends, I'd be like, they go right to heaven. And people I don't like personally, who maybe are very good, I'll send that guy, punish him, like that's so true. God exists and I'm not God. Thank God. So that's the interpretation I'm drawn more to. I don't know if it's chastisement. Again, to quote the Tower of Siloam story from that Christ gives, is Lisbon worse than other cities that don't suffer as much? Probably not. I don't know. I'm not God. I don't understand God's plan. I'm just with St. Anselm, like, I believe, Lord, and St. Augustine, perhaps too, about the Eucharist, that Eucharistic prayer. I believe, Lord, help my disbelief. I believe you have a plan, a providential plan. I reject fully the Calvinistic nonsense. Your plan is not illogical. That's the Calvinists say. It doesn't matter. God's above logic. No, God is the Logos incarnate. So it is logical. It makes sense. We just can't see it. But with faith, I'm going to move forward and repent. And those people probably, that's where I'm going to end the class. At least I'm going to give you all the floor to end. I'm saying I'm going to end my talking. The people that probably take that position are probably look inward and say, well, what do I do? Pray, pray, pray. Probably the ultimate response to disasters is, okay, well, I don't know if we're being chastised. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not God. I don't know. But let me look at, should I be more active in the prayer life? Should I show more charity? When and if we rebuild this city, maybe we should check our avarice. Maybe that's true. Without flying to extremes and making assumptions and it's the end of the world, it's this, and I know this, and the secret prophecy, just like, I like that common sense approach that it seems like a lot of Portuguese citizens emerge with. There's a positive ending, I'd say here. Portugal, negative ending, geopolitical power. I mean, GDP down, they're done. Portugal reemerges as a normal European country, very beautiful, one of the most beautiful places on earth to this day. Lisbon is rebuilt, so all's well that ends well. In a sense, that's all I have for you. What do you have for me?
Lisbon is rebuilt for the next 190 years.
Sure, yeah. Well, what the economy's never rebuilt. That's right. It's all relative. It's not like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Whenever they rebuild it, they restart the video game, right? No, you're absolutely right. Funny, but and also true. Some of these things do not pop back up overnight. They're rebuilt from scratch and takes maybe, like you said, literally over 100 years, right? To kind of the economy to this day has not rebounded. Isn't that crazy? Lisbon earthquake predates our Declaration of Independence by 21 years. In the entire existence of America, Portugal has never reached what it was before America existed, just in terms of power and money. So it's still not rebuilt.
What are the chief principal exports in Portugal?
I do know, I'm pretty certain, I number one, I don't know, but I'm pretty certain that among them though, of the basic thing, Madeira wine is huge. And it's like, oh, whatever, that sounds so, you're going to tell me seriously, like, Widmer Brothers, Portland, Hefeweizen, like it's one specific thing. Yeah, it's island of Madeira wine. The guy actually wrote a very good book called Fish into Wine, Peter Pope, where he talks about a triangle trade involving like New England fisheries, Newfoundland fisheries, up in Canada, and Madeira wine is the gold currency. So Portuguese are very big on wine and also port stuff, seafood, etc. Beyond that, like, is there some how forested is Portugal? I have no idea. Motor vehicles? Yeah, I have no idea. They are really okay. Can you look up for me? I'm just actually curious. Madeira wine, Portugal economy. Can you look up what it says about that? Is that still a thing? I know that was always their kind of big thing.
What cars? Are they like making Renaults?
I think Toyota.
Yeah.
I think Ford is Portuguese.
They probably have.
Why not? In the global economy, right? So Betsy's taken forever to freaking look up this thing.
What cars,
That's not an excuse. How dare you? Guys, I'll invite all of you tonight, if you want to come to our first Spirit in Life. I'm sure you're going to get, you probably got text about it. But if anyone's wondering, Clay knows everything that goes on intellect, and he's not impressed, to be honest. People, Brad, Betsy, Turner, I don't know if you might have never attended before in the past. Were you here in the spring or no?
Yes.
You were here. Did you ever come to Spirit in Life? Okay, so good. So then it holds. A Spirit in Life is, we actually have 3 intellect events in a row. Tonight is our first Spirit in Life. Topic is Holy Eucharist.
And is that going to be on Zoom?
Yeah.
Last week wasn't on Zoom, I tried.
Oh, I wasn't there. Last week was AMA just Father Chase, and I wasn't a part of that at all. And I'm not saying that's some kind of quip joke or something. I'm just saying, like, I'll bring my computer and Zoom for me.
to do really well together.
We are next week. We are. No, we are.
Yeah.
No, last week, thanks. I really appreciate that. And I agree. I love him so much and I like our dynamic and
Complement each other so well.
yeah, no, I love to make jokes and sarcasm. Thank you for saying that. I feel that way too. I think those are nice events. We have a father and I have an AMA combined every semester, just one. That's next week. The one that was last week was a special one just for him. Like he just wanted about the liturgy only. So actually it'd be kind of cool if you come to the AMA next week, maybe ask like non-liturgical questions, I would say. That's absolutely unacceptable. But so anyways, we have 3 intellect events in a row. The Spirit and Life tonight is on the Holy Eucharist. I have made the questions part of my job. This isn't like, oh, someone else. I can tell you like from the horse's mouth. If you go to Vandalect, like Grow Your Faith, Vandal Catholic Intellect, there's the questions and the book suggestions. In that event, I don't know who's going to be the MC now. Not Clayton Zimmerman, but I wish it was. This guy's an absolute legend. But last year's Andrew Gogol, he's gone. He was the Focus missionary. He would MC it. And the whole event is I give a speech, and Father talks, and it's answer questions. So if anyone's interested in that, again, you all have been there for this kind of stuff. But like I give like a 10-minute speech, he gives a 10-minute speech, and then we answer questions about that topic. Tonight's all about the Holy Eucharist. Next week is an AMA, which again, one more I have to say. It's just us literally answering whatever kind of questions. And then my favorite event is in 2 weeks, my first Hippo lecture, which I made a promo video. Maybe some of you saw I sent out. It's I'm doing a 3-part story. And the Hippo lectures are radically different from Spirit and Life because the speech I'll give tonight is both short, like 10 minutes, where Hippo is like 30, 40, 50 minutes long. And the stuff tonight is no nonsense kind of catechesis where Hippo lectures are like I've sung during them live and whatever. It's all over the place. We have 3 things in a row. So anyone also watching online, 721, it was 729 before, but 721 people watching online. If you guys come in person later, it'll be all good. Betsy, did you figure out about Madeira wine?
Very well.
That sigh was just pure disappointment.
I left off the economy. Madeira's economy is based on the services sector. You see, it's giving me the region stuff. So 85% of the GDP with tourism being the main driver and largest source of income in the region.
But what is their GDS though? Like gross domestic product is important. What is the GDS? The gross domestic swagger. I really believe I can ask any question with a straight face. That's swagger. That's swagger. These stupid 20-year-old kids in America who come in like Portugal's sick, bruh. Like I'm gonna vlog about it. Like that's it. Okay. On that note, Betsy Johnson still hasn't found out about Madeira wine. I will say for the record, he mentions it. I will say for the record, Betsy Johnson is a legend. The fact that Betsy Johnson has all these connections to Seattle is just amazing, Betsy.
In agriculture, banana production is mainly directed at regional and national consumption. Flowers in the famous Madeira wine also make.
Let's go. Famous. See, I was right.
Bananas.
You know what? I think your point is bananas, as in crazy.
Most of the cars exported from Portugal are Volkswagens.
Okay.
Germans like to conquer stuff.
Yeah.
Let's end the class on that. What's the best car in Portugal? A German one.
Yeah.
That says it all. See you guys later.